Welcome back to my channel. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely amazing. On this episode of Truckin' It, you can probably hear it in my cab right now and maybe even a bit in my video. I'm going to be discussing what to do in high winds. Now, in windy conditions, are there safe limits to what a truck can handle? Is there something you can do to prevent a rollover crash? And what exactly are those big things on the back of the cab on today's semi-trucks? Just stay tuned and grab your wind speed chart and let's get started. So, wind advisories and wind warnings. What do we need to know about them? The first thing is let's start with the definition. Wind advisory is issued when winds of about 25 to 30 miles an hour or gusts to around 45 to 50 make driving difficult for doubles haulers and those with light loads and those with loads that have high center of gravity. A high wind warning, which, by the way, if it's in conjunction with a severe thunderstorm, it becomes a severe thunderstorm warning automatically. So bear that in mind. High wind warnings are issued when wind gusts exceed 58 miles per hour, which is basically the top end limit for a set of doubles or for a moderate to heavy loaded trailer. And like I said, that's the top end limit. That's not a lower limit. That's about as high as you can safely go once you've slowed down and done all the necessary steps to deal with high wind. Now, your comfort is also a factor, because if you're starting to have back pain and shoulder pain from fighting the wind, and especially when you're getting towards the end of your shift, you may want to consider advising dispatch, and keeping a safe place in mind is essential anytime you're running in windy conditions. So, let's define what high wind is first off. High wind is wind that is strong enough to make handling difficult. And in your truck, no matter it's a pickup, pulling a small trailer, an RV, or a heavy truck, your feeling and handling is going to vary, and your definition of high wind is going to basically be anything from 25 miles an hour on up in terms of sustained speeds. In terms of gusts, it's any gust over 30. And these gusts are what the inherent danger is, because a gust can come upon you suddenly and without warning. So if you think you're going to be driving in gusty winds, you'll need to know some warning signs. First thing is, look at the movement of the trees and vegetation around you, and this is where it's very important to keep aware of your surroundings. Second, feel the steering, as in, if your vehicle begins pulling harder to one side or another, that may be an indication of strong wind. And if your vehicle begins to somehow suddenly start going faster on level ground, and you're not putting any more power into it, e.g. you have the cruise control set or whatever, that would be a good time to get off the cruise and, again, feel through the steering wheel and feel through the seat of the pants as to what's going on around you, as you may be encountering a tailwind at that point. So, what level of wind is safe for a truck? Well, the answer is it's going to vary depending on your type of truck, your load, and other factors, such as how strong the gusts are. In the event of a wind advisory, this means that the gusts are strong enough to blow around light loads and make those hard to handle. It's also going to cause crack the whip with doubles, and it's going to cause a kind of a rocking sensation, kind of like being on a boat during this type of a condition. A high wind warning means that your rig's really going to feel like a rocking boat, even if you have a heavy load. And your weight in the box does play a factor. If you have 45,000 pounds of, let's say, beer in the box, it's going to handle differently than, let's say, 20,000 pounds of toilet paper, for example. And your knowledge of your load is going to help you. In some states, they will actually issue a weight-based wind advisory, or a light load advisory, as they call it, where if the winds are gusting above 40 miles an hour, they will tell you to pull off the road and find a safe place to park. If the winds are gusting above 60 miles an hour, those states will ban all trucks. Now, there are some states that are exceptions to this. For example, Illinois, a state that I grew up in, or you may pronounce it Illinois with a silent S. Their rule is that in the event of high wind, doubles, triples, and house trailers are banned when the gusts are over 45 miles an hour on certain toll roads. But on the rest of the roads, they have no bans at all. They just wait until the first wreck before a highway closes. In Texas, where I live now, we have to be mindful of things like blowing dust. And the troopers have the ability to shut down the road at any time. Along with that, there's plenty of local media sources to tell you what will be going on. And in the Northeast, where I typically run, they tend to issue plenty of advisories, but not so many warnings, because, quite frankly, the traffic itself might even shut down the highway without you having to do anything. Just because when the event happens, whatever event it is, whether it be a crash, rollover, whatever, the volume of traffic up there is enough to force everybody to slow down or even come to a dead stop. Now, are there better ways to park your rig in the event of high wind? The answer is yes. If you are under a high wind warning, it's best to get next to another driver, put your landing gear down, and just be extremely cautious in the parking lot, as other drivers may be coming in and out. And it will be more crowded than usual. You'll want to park beside or behind another truck, and preferably close to a building where you can see and feel what's going on, but not so much as to be rocked around or be shaken. Now, it's always better if the truck stops in a valley. It's always better if it's surrounded by vegetation of some kind, as long as it's an adequate distance from the truckers themselves. And it's always better to have a safe parking spot in mind whenever you're out running, because of anything unexpected that could happen, especially on a windy day. Now, another sign of high wind that some of you flatbedders have is that their tarp may come loose. And that only applies really to flatbeds and to those trailers that have tarps, like trash trucks, grain wagons, etc. And in those situations, the tarp will be harder to operate to get back in position. Therefore, it's important that when you're in your shady spot or when you're blocked by another truck, that's the time to resecure your tarp and make sure that it's all good and in the closed position. Do not run with your tarp open on a windy day. Hey, if you're pulling a hopper bottom or dump trailer or trash trailer. If you're pulling a flatbed, be mindful of how your tarp's applied. Make sure all your straps are in good condition. Make sure all your hardware's in good shape, and make sure that everything can withstand the wind that you will be driving through. If you're driving your own personal vehicle and you're going to be out in these high winds, one very important thing for you to do, in addition to putting your phone away, is to increase your following distance significantly. You'll want to have about double the following distance that you normally have, and if any precipitation's occurring, like rain, snow, ice, wind, or ice or hail along with your wind, you'll want to increase that distance even more and turn your headlights on, even if it is flying dust, because, well, quite frankly, there's been quite a few crashes that have been caused by drivers who have lost their visibility, whether that be by blowing dust, by precipitation, or just by the effects of the wind blowing through your area. So, slow down, increase your following distance, and minimize your lane changes. Now, I am filming this on my phone camera, and if y'all have any more ideas on how to deal with high wind, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. And let's make your best trip your next trip by making sure that you know where these advisories and warnings are at. Download an app like AccuWeather or NBC5 or the Weather channel, and you will be informed on these advisories and warnings when they do affect your area. And if there's any highway signs telling you about wind advisories, make sure to heed those as well. Have a safe trip, and bye for now.